right, so we are here. Mark Terry, I'm Derek Fahey. We are both partners at the Plus IP firm. We're patent and trademark attorneys. Mark, what's going on, buddy?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Derek?
I am good. Today we are talking about examiner interviews, actually the secret to success in patent law and patent prosecution, at least what I think. So what do you think about that?
I'm really happy to talk about it because it's something I spent a lot of time doing, and I wish someone had taught me how to do them. I just sort of figured it out over the years.
Yeah, great point. All right, so let's do some rapid fire questions to get us going and get juices flowing.
Okay, you ready?
Totally impromptu. I have no idea what you're going to ask me. Okay.
All right. How do you like your eggs, Derek?
Over medium, sometimes scrambled.
Really?
I'm an over medium guy. What about you?
Sounds like you go either way, huh?
It depends on my mood sometimes. If it's in a burrito, I kind of want it. Scrambled. If I'm eating with toast, I like it a little runny, but not too runny, so I can soak it up with bread. What about you?
All right. Yeah. I usually always eat them over easy.
Oh, you're an over easy guy, huh? You like them?
Yeah.
I like really runny.
Exactly.
Oh yeah. Okay, cool.
All right, Derek, cats or dogs?
Dogs. You?
Yeah. You
Yeah.
never had a cat?
Never had a cat.
Never had a cat, really? Not
Never
even
had
like
a cat.
an outside cat that you would pet in the neighborhood?
No, dog guy.
You'd be surprised, man. You get a cat in the house, you'd be surprised how quickly you get attached.
Maybe I'll get a cat. That's me. I was thinking about getting a dog, but I travel too much, so maybe I'll get a cat.
There you go. It's perfect for people who travel.
What do you do? Just let it hang out in the house for the whole week?
Yeah, they're perfectly fine. You get an automatic feeder, right? And you get one of those kitty litter boxes that clean themselves, and they're fine.
Wow.
A week is fine. Yeah. Now,
funny.
weeks might be a little much. Yeah.
Funny story. My friend in college, who her name is, I'll give a shout out to Sonia. Sonia Haffey. She trained her cat to pee in the toilet and poop in the toilet.
Man. I've seen that on YouTube before.
It's pretty cool. It's step by step. You first get it to go put the litter box inside the bathroom, so they get used to going in the bathroom. Then you put litter box on top of the toilet every time you leave. And then you take away the litter box and there's a special kit. So you just poop through the litter box into the toilet. And eventually you just take the whole thing out of the way and they're just we'll just poop in the toilet. Oh, lost Mark. Bad connection. You back?
Oh yeah. Oh, that's interesting. I never lost you.
Okay, cool.
All right, you ready?
Yep.
All right. What's the weirdest food you've ever eaten?
I'm gonna go. I'm not a frog raw guy. I don't know if it's the weirdest food, but it's not a frog raw guy.
Okay.
Yeah, tongue too. Not a big tongue or frog raw.
That is kind of weird. I've never had tongue before.
Yeah. What about you?
I ate some bugs in Thailand.
Yeah.
They get some bugs and then they fry them, like some herbs and spices. It just tastes like herbs and spices, but that was pretty weird.
Yeah.
All right. What is something that you know how to cook really well?
Eggs.
Just one thing.
Eggs.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I can cook a mean risotto. That's the one thing I can do really well.
Oh, really? Risotto. Okay.
Yeah. I'll make it for you sometime. You and Ann.
Deal.
All right. Last one. All right. Used emoji.
Most used emoji?
Yeah.
Smiley face, thumbs up. Those are probably two of the biggest ones.
Yes. Actually, same here, actually.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up all the time.
Yeah. Those are good questions, man. Nice work.
Good. All right, man. All right. So examiner interviews. Tell me about the last examiner interview you had.
The last examiner interview actually was for a client of mine, actually for my father-in-law. funny enough. And I'm working on one of his patent applications. And, one of the things we like to do is prepare. Yeah, I think that one of the biggest things you got to prepare. You only have one shot to have an interview before you get a final office action. So I think it's really important to prepare. And the examiner was actually very helpful. And it doesn't always go like that, but what makes it really a great interview for me, especially, is doing, getting as much information to the examiner so they can review. If you have claim amendments, I always like sending claim amendments so you have something to talk about, so you can actually move the application forward, so you're not just totally dead in the water after the application. So and that interview went well. The examiner didn't agree to the claims we proposed, but we were able to, pull out some language that he thought would actually overcome the rejection, because he saw things. He said, well, what about this? And he brought up some issues. So we actually worked together to come up with some language that we could potentially use to at least circumvent the existing rejection, which was great. What about you? Tell me about your last interview question, your last examiner interview.
Yeah, sure. So I use the same procedure for every interview, which is I usually start with speaking with the client, and we figure out what we want to do. So I would say, the majority of the time we're going to present some arguments, arguments in favor of, why it is our patentable, and number two, some amendments to the claims. And so once we decide on that, I prepare the agenda. And the agenda is just a very brief explanation of the amendments that we want to make. I actually amend the claim, and then I provide, a very brief argument. It's basically just a precursor to our actual response. We put that in the agenda. Then we set the examiner interview using the online automated interview examiner interview form, and then and then at the same time we send out the agenda, and then we have the interview. And I always start the interview with just some light banter about working at the patent office and how they're doing, and are they working remotely. And then I usually start with hey, did you get a chance to review the agenda? Because if not, I reschedule the interview. Otherwise, it's going to be a waste of time, right?
Yep.
And then we just go through the agenda one by one, and I ask them some very pointed questions. Will this amendment get us past the prior art? You've had a chance to review it. You tell me if it will. If it does, then I'll present it in the office action response. And if not, then I'll just drop it. And I just try to get some direct answers from the examiner.
Yeah.
And if everything goes well, I'll get some direct answers or something close to direct answers.
Yep.
And that will dictate how we present the office action response.
Yeah, we do a lot of things very similar. You said a lot of things there that I want to unpack a little bit. First off, I do the same thing. Speaking with the client is so critical. I like speaking with the client, getting them to understand, why it's important to have the interview, explain to them that this is our chance to really gauge how the examiner has looked at the application, and propose, if we can, argue against the rejection, obviously. And then at that time, have a backup plan. We always like having a backup plan with some sort of amendment for us to try to get around at least the existing prior art. And once we have the game plan with the client, doing the AIR request is great. And the reason why, I think it's the automated interview request form, right? If you were to Google
AIR, automated interview request.
Yeah,
form,
what's cool about that is
PTOL 413A for the bureaucrats out there.
Yeah, exactly. The PTOL 413A form. What I like, actually, no, AIR request is different. What I like the AIR request, I actually will fill out the AIR request. And I like doing the AIR request because you can click on that little button. There's actually a little dial button that allows you to authorize internet communications, which I think is really a great idea. So you can start emailing back and forth, because some examiners are really old school, and they'll say, "Oh, listen, I can't email. You haven't done a internet authorization form. Can you fax it to me?"
Yeah.
And my thought is, okay, you want me to fax it to you so it can go into so it can be converted to PDF, and then you can get it in your email? Absolutely not. We're doing the error request. So I always like doing the error request, and then after you put the error request in, because you can select the different times you want to meet, I'll call the examiner and just introduce myself and say, try to start off on the right foot and tell them, hey, I just sent this error request. I just want to introduce myself and tell you who I am, and when's good for you. So so they're not just getting like some random error request and they're just accepting it. I always like calling them and trying to at least like start off with like, hey, what's good for you? Once we agree to that, then I'll send over the PTO, the 413A form. And I like doing the form, and then obviously attaching the claim amendments with the arguments that we've discussed with the client and agreed to that. And I find I'm with you. When you get on that call with the examining attorney, you got to make sure that they read the interview, because you only have one shot. So if they're kind of wishy-washy, let me ask you this: if they were like, "Hey, yeah, I read it. Yesterday. I kind of glanced at it." What do you do then? You reschedule, or you're like,
Schedule.
"Yep, yeah,
Schedule. Yeah.
yeah, exactly." And that's why it's so important.
I just flat out tell them, look, I'm here, to reach some conclusions. Okay. And we're not going to get anywhere if you just skim something or you just looked at it a minute before I called you. I say it a lot more diplomatically than that, and then I say, hey, let's just reschedule, because I'm trying to reach a conclusion here, and I don't want to waste time, and I don't want to use up my one chance to have an interview on an interview that's not going to get anywhere.
Yeah. And exactly. And I do the same thing, man. When I talk to them, assuming that they've looked at it, I try to send it like a couple days in advance so they can actually, review it. But same thing. I ask about the weather, try to ask if they're remote, just try to establish some sort of rapport, ask if they're a veteran, just get them talking and feeling positive about me. And, just, if they like you, eventually, essentially they're the gatekeeper, right? The first gatekeeper. Yeah. So why not be friends with them? So same thing that I do. What does not work for you?
There's that you mentioned, so you do this extra procedure where you call them first to try to get a date. I don't do that because you call someone and then you got to wait for a call back the next day. If you call them on a Thursday or Friday, they may not get back to you till Monday. Now you've got to put something on your calendar to remind you to follow up on that. I just send out the error request and we pick a date well into the future, like 10 to 14 days ahead. And I let them get back to me. And if it doesn't work for them, that's fine. They'll email me and they'll say, hey, you requested this date, I can't do it. And I always respond with, hey, no problem. Let's do it the day after that or the day after that, no problem. But I just pick a date well in the future. And I said it's only 30 minutes and wait for them to get back to me if it is that they can't make it.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think the error request that you have to do it 5 working days and you can't schedule within 5 working days. You have to do it after the 5th working day, after when you submit it.
Even let you can't even select the date. Like the program won't let you select the date if it's in the next 5 working days.
Yeah, that's a good point. So what about in like speaking with the examiner? I know both of us, we've talked about like just horror stories with crappy examiners. I'll tell you one. We talk about this a lot. Some of the examiners are fantastic and some of them just aren't prepared. Those are the worst for me, just when they just aren't prepared, or you're going through the interview, you just can tell they're just like it's not gonna go anywhere. How do you handle that situation when you kind of just, it's not going anywhere and you're gonna have to, and you think they're wrong. It's not going anywhere and you think they're wrong. How
Yeah.
do you handle that situation?
Well, it doesn't happen very often, but if things go really wrong and you can't get anywhere with the patent examiner and you think that they're really not they're not giving you enough time, or they're not returning your phone call, or they miss the scheduled interview, there's the ombudsman program, which I've only used like 2 or 3 times in my career, but it's basically a program that's made for situations just like that. And it's not a terribly extensive program. It's just someone at the patent office that you can call when you have a problem like that, and they will call the patent examiner and say, hey, come on, give this guy some extra time. And that's usually what happens. The examiner is then forced to call you and give you an entire 30-minute interview. I've been able to get a second one before using that program. And then in extreme cases, you can always call the director. That I've never done before. Yeah.
So you have the SPE, you can call the supervising attorney,
Mhm.
which is, supervising patent examiner, right? It's a SPE, which also, I think I do that. I've done that before several times. The ombudsman program, I have not done that. But I have called the director or the director's office, which you eventually get to talk to a staff attorney on a trademark matter. And that does work pretty well if you have a pretty good argument. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What else works for you?
Calling the speed, there's the human element to calling the SPE is basically that the SPE is the examiner's boss.
Yeah.
No one likes to have their boss get on their case. And that's, I try not to do that, but I have had to do it in cases. Sometimes I wonder if that has actually backfired on me,
Yeah.
Someone called my boss, I wouldn't really be very inclined to be nice to that person now.
Yeah. I only do it if I know procedurally they're wrong. Like they're just dead wrong. I had a case recently where the examiner made a mistake. Well, the examiner they took way too long. We filed a response. It took way too long to actually get back to us. Just I guess not too long, but unseasonably long. And they got back to us and they clicked the wrong button, so it actually showed up incorrectly, and it kind of it affected the amount of money we had to pay for an extension, and they did it incorrectly after final. So I had to call the examining attorney. He didn't pick up. I emailed the examining attorney like 3 times. He never responded. So at that point, I was like, well, I guess I got to call the patent examiner. I called, left a message with the patent examiner and just said, hey, gave her my name, explained the issue, explained the rule, what he did wrong. I was like, you're just looking to get this fixed. And the examining attorney called me back and said, hey, I'm really sorry. I saw here, it's definitely a mistake. Sorry about that. I've just been really busy. And I said, I'm really sorry. I didn't mean to call your SPE, but I had to do something because the clock was ticking and we had to, I didn't want my client to pay more fees, but we shouldn't have to pay fees. Anyways, he says, that's okay. My examiner had been yelling at me for something else anyway, so it's totally fine. I felt so bad, but it's
that's funny.
Yeah, clearly he was not doing a good job, which happens. You have these just lazy examiners. I will say, I don't mind the difficult examiners. Like if you have a tough examiner that's tough, I think it's actually better for the client, because if you get past a tough examiner, it's going to be a better patent. So I'm okay with
that's
tough.
a solid patent right there.
Yeah, Yeah, I'm okay
Sure.
with tough, but lazy and just like not responding and like, just crappy arguments and like just really hammering home on these crappy arguments or not factually correct. That's what really it just makes it more difficult and costly for the client, because now you have to
Yeah.
respond and explain, hey, this is why you're wrong. Here's the law. Because of the law, you're wrong, and to try to get past the rejection. So, what else did you prepare? Anything else besides what we talked about?
Not just the, discussing with the client and then the agenda. And then, based on the results of the interview, that will dictate how we write that amendment in response. Sometimes the examiner likes everything we stated, and I just take that same agenda and that acts as a blueprint for the amendment in response. Sometimes he comes up with some different ideas, and so we change our amendment in response based on what he says. It all depends on how it goes.
Yeah. In fact, if I'm able to, if the examiner agree, I like actually doing screen sharing so we can actually edit the claim right on the screen if we're talking about amending claims, if we get to that point. And if the examiner says, yeah, I think this will get around the rejection, I make a point on my agenda. I have a point and I say, okay, just to confirm, you are agreeing with me that these claim amendments as currently written overcome the existing prior art. Is that right? Can we get an agreement on that? And I make them lock it in, especially if they're saying, yeah, I think that'll work. Obviously they always give you the caveat that, hey, I have to do another search.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I always like get them locked in on like what that they agree. So how, if they want to backtrack out of it, we have some arguments to go, we have some things to hammer them on if they do back out of it. So that's one of the things that I do as
Exactly.
well. Yeah, I learned that from you actually.
Yeah, getting that agreement is important. And then I always put that in my amendment in response, which is I always have a section in there that says we conducted an interview and it was agreed in the interview that if we made these very amendments that this 101 rejection or this 102 rejection would be overcome.
Yeah.
And hope, most of the time that works.
Yeah. Another thing, I actually have found what I like doing the interviews, especially is you based upon the examiner's almost like posture or how they're reacting to the conversation, you can gauge how they're going to be. I think a lot of times you can get a gauge if they're going to if they're going to allow the claim through. And I think it's important to get that information out as opposed to just filing a response without having that gauge. So you can help the client make decisions as well to say, hey, look, this is actually examiner seemed fairly positive. It's not guaranteed, but he did agree to the amendments and seems like we're gonna be able to overcome this. And the client will help the client make decisions financially if they need to, plan, forecast, or maybe they have to budget for another response. Sometimes I'll say, listen, probably going to be 2 or 3 responses here to get to where we want to go. Just be aware of that and budget it in your forecasting. So I love doing that because you're just getting more information from them, and you're entitled to it, right? You're entitled to one interview, at least one interview. Yeah. So yeah.
That's a huge help.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, man. Well, cool. All right. You got anything else on examiner initiated interview or applicant
I
initiated
think
interviews?
that does it for the interviews. Next
All
time
right.
we'll talk about the actual amendments that we write.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good, Mark. All right, buddy. Well, this is Derek Fahey, Mark Terry on the other side. Mark Terry. And man, thanks again for getting on this podcast and making it happen.
Thanks, Derek. I'll see you soon.
See ya.
All right.